The alien fleet hovered in the vast emptiness of space, its massive warships gliding silently through the stars. To their leaders, the humans of Earth were nothing more than a primitive species. Their technology was outdated, their warships clunky, and their military power a mere speck compared to the advanced civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy. Yet in their arrogance, the aliens had underestimated humanity's ability to surprise. They had watched Earth's warships from afar, observing their basic designs, and decided it was time to see what these human ships were really capable of. From the flagship of the alien fleet, the command was given: initiate a scan of the human warships. It seemed simple enough. Their technology was far superior, and they expected to gather data with ease. Their scientists were already sure that humans had nothing special to hide. They couldn't have known that they were about to make a deadly mistake. As the alien ships moved into position, their sensors activated. A stream of data began to flood their systems, but what they didn't expect was that the human warships weren't just lying dormant in space. The moment the scan reached them, something unexpected happened. Instead of just transmitting information back, the warship's systems reacted. A surge of energy shot out from one of the human ships, cutting through space like a bolt of lightning. On the alien ships, alarms blared, and the sudden surge of energy left their sensors reeling. They couldn't understand it. What was happening? The energy was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Their systems had never registered a force like this. The scan, which was supposed to be a routine procedure, had somehow triggered a strange and powerful response. The energy shot out in all directions, temporarily short-circuiting the alien fleet's systems. Inside the alien flagship, chaos broke out. Officers scrambled to maintain control over their ship's systems, their faces frozen in disbelief. They had expected a simple scan, but instead, they had been met with something far more dangerous. The alien commanders tried to issue orders, but their communication lines were dead. The pulse from the human ship had knocked out all their internal systems, leaving them blind and vulnerable in the cold expanse of space. "Recover control, now," screamed the fleet commander, his voice shaking with urgency. But it was no use. The aliens had no idea what they had just unleashed. On the human side, the crew aboard the warship didn't know what was happening either. They were just as confused as the aliens. The power surge had come from one of the ship's weapons, but it wasn't something they had intentionally activated. No one had expected the alien ships to initiate a scan, let alone trigger such a powerful reaction. It was as though their ship's system had a mind of its own, reacting to the alien ship's actions without any input from the crew. As the confusion grew, the humans began to regain control over their ship's systems. They had felt the pulse shoot outward, but they didn't know the full extent of what had just happened. They only knew that something was off, and that the aliens who had believed themselves to be the superior force were now in disarray. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was still struggling to recover. What was even more disturbing was the fact that they had no way of understanding what had just occurred. The human warship that had triggered the pulse appeared to be just another one of their basic designs, but the response they had gotten was anything but ordinary. It didn't take long for the fleet's commanders to realize that they had made a grave error. They had underestimated Earth. Back on the human warship, the crew gathered in the control room, each person feeling a sense of tension in the air. They had felt the disturbance, but had no idea how it had affected the aliens. The captain of the warship, a grizzled veteran with years of experience, stared at the view screen, his face serious. The sight of the alien ships, disabled and drifting, was both unnerving and intriguing. "Captain, the alien ships," one of the officers began, but was cut off by the captain's hand. "We'll find out soon enough," the captain replied, his voice low. He couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. The aliens had tried to scan them, and in doing so, had unleashed something far beyond their expectations. This wasn't just a fight over territory or power. This was something bigger, something the aliens hadn't counted on. Humanity wasn't as defenseless as they had thought. The minutes stretched on as the human crew watched the alien fleet struggle. The pulse from the warship had thrown the aliens into chaos, and their once confident ships were now vulnerable. The captain turned to his communications officer. "Get me a direct line to their fleet," he ordered. The officer quickly worked the controls, attempting to establish a communication link. The alien fleet, now reeling from the unexpected surge, was in no condition to respond, but the humans needed answers. The captain's heart raced. He knew the aliens were powerful, but this was the first time they had truly seen how much damage they could inflict with a simple mistake. Meanwhile, the alien commanders were desperately trying to regain control. Their advanced ships, which had been the pride of their fleet, were now effectively blind and helpless. They couldn't scan the humans any longer, and their once commanding position in space was slipping away. The sheer force of the human technology had thrown them off balance. "Initiate a full retreat," one of the alien commanders ordered. But even as the command was given, the damage had already been done. The aliens now realized the true power of humanity's warships. They had poked a hornet's nest, and now they were paying the price. Back aboard the human warship, the captain stared at the communication screen. A message was coming in from the alien fleet, but it wasn't what he had expected. The message wasn't a warning or an attack. It was a desperate plea for communication, a cry for help. The captain's expression hardened as he read the message. The aliens had no idea what had just happened, no understanding of what humanity was capable of. It was the perfect moment for a counterattack, but the captain held back. The aliens were too disoriented, and humanity's technology had already done its job. There was no need to push further, yet. For now, humanity had gained a victory without ever firing a shot. The aliens had attempted to scan their warships, and in doing so, had learned that humans were not to be underestimated. The story was only beginning, and the galaxy was about to find out just how dangerous humanity could be when provoked. The alien fleet floated in the vast expanse of space, its ships gliding effortlessly through the stars like predators hunting their prey. The aliens, a species known for their advanced technology and cunning strategies, had been observing Earth for some time. Their scans revealed that humans, while resourceful, were still a primitive species by galactic standards. Their ships were outdated, their weapons basic, and their military power laughable compared to the galactic empires they had encountered. To the aliens, humanity was little more than an interesting curiosity, a species that had somehow survived in a harsh universe. But the aliens were about to make a critical mistake. From the flagship of the alien fleet, the orders were given. "Initiate the scan," came the cold voice of the commander. The alien ships began to adjust their positions, forming a perfect ring around the human warships below. The plan was simple: gather data on humanity's military capabilities, analyze their technology, and assess whether Earth was worth conquering. The aliens were confident that their superior intelligence and technology would easily allow them to take control of the planet. But they had no idea that they were about to trigger something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The aliens began the scan. As they sent their beams of energy towards the human warships, they expected nothing more than basic readings, ship designs, weapons systems, and a general overview of human capabilities. Instead, something strange happened. The moment the scan touched the surface of the human ships, it was met with a resistance unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. It wasn't just a passive block, like the human ship systems were designed to ignore scans. No, this was different. A burst of energy, powerful and uncontrollable, erupted from one of the human warships. It was as though the ship itself had reacted to the aliens' presence. The energy shot out like a lightning bolt, a pulse that rippled through space, sending shockwaves in every direction. The alien fleet was not prepared for this. Inside the alien flagship, chaos erupted. Systems shorted out. Communication lines were severed. Officers screamed in panic as their monitors flickered, unable to process the overwhelming surge of power that had just slammed into their ships. For a moment, The fleet was plunged into darkness. The scan, which had seemed so simple and harmless, had somehow triggered a catastrophic reaction. The aliens were paralyzed, unable to understand what had just happened. "Status report," the fleet commander demanded, his voice laced with panic. He looked out the view screen, but the once clear image of the human warships was now distorted and clouded by interference. His officers scrambled to assess the damage, but it was clear that the fleet was in disarray. Their once advanced technology was now rendered nearly useless by the unexpected power surge from the human ships. Back aboard the human warship, the crew was equally confused. The captain, a seasoned officer who had seen countless battles, stood at the command station, staring at the chaotic readouts on his screen. What had just happened? They had not activated any weapons, and yet the alien fleet had been thrown into chaos by something they couldn't even comprehend. "Captain," an officer called out from the side, his voice strained. "We didn't do anything. The ship, it activated something on its own." The captain's brow furrowed. "Explain." "The energy surge, it wasn't us. It came from the ship itself, as if it knew what was happening and reacted to it." The officer explained. "It's like the ship has a mind of its own." The captain clenched his fists. He had heard rumors of strange anomalies in the ship's systems, old, classified technology that had been installed during its construction. But he had never imagined something like this. They had barely even understood the true capabilities of their own ships, and yet here they were, forcing an alien fleet to retreat without firing a single shot. "Prepare for anything," the captain ordered. "Stay alert. We have no idea what's going on, but we're not out of danger yet." Meanwhile, on the alien ships, the damage was becoming more evident. Their sensors were offline, unable to track anything in space. Their weapon systems were malfunctioning, their communications scrambled beyond repair. The aliens, once so confident in their ability to dominate, were now faced with the terrifying reality that humanity had something they didn't understand, and it was powerful. In the alien flagship, the commander seethed with frustration. "This is impossible," he muttered under his breath. "How could they have such technology? How could they have hidden this from us?" "Sir, the fleet is completely blind," one of the officers reported. "We can't track the human ships. We can't communicate with them. We're sitting ducks out here." "Regroup," the commander barked, trying to maintain control of the situation. "We need to get our systems back online. Send a message to the other fleets. We're pulling back for now. We need time to figure this out." As the alien fleet retreated, the human captain watched in silence. He didn't trust this strange turn of events. The aliens had been thrown into disarray, but that didn't mean they were done. They would regroup, and when they did, they would be back with a vengeance. But for now, humanity had won a small victory. The alien fleet, once so sure of its superiority, had been forced to retreat without firing a single shot. And for the first time, the aliens had learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate humanity. The captain turned to his crew. "Let's keep moving. Stay ready, but don't assume this is over. We've only just begun." As the human ships continued their course, the distant alien fleet began to regain its composure. But even as the damage was repaired, the seeds of doubt had been planted. Humanity had done something no one had expected. And the alien leaders, now aware of the dangers lurking in the unknown, couldn't help but wonder, what else did Earth have hiding in its depths? The alien fleet had retreated, but the damage done was not easily forgotten. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had not only survived an attack, but their ships had fought back in a way that no one could explain. The aliens, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning everything they had believed about Earth. The power that had been unleashed by the human ships was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was raw, unpredictable, and terrifying. Inside the alien command ship, the fleet's high-ranking officers were gathered for an emergency meeting. The tension in the room was palpable, and no one spoke for several moments. All eyes were on Commander Zoreth, the fleet's leader, who was staring grimly at the holographic display showing the damage done to their ships. "What happened out there?" Commander Zoreth finally asked, his voice laced with frustration. "How could we be taken down by a bunch of primitive warships?" One of the senior officers, a tall, angular alien with pale green skin, stepped forward. "Commander, the human ships, there's something we don't understand. Their technology. It's not like anything we've ever seen. When we initiated the scan, it wasn't just a passive response. The energy pulse, it overwhelmed our systems. We barely managed to retreat without losing more ships." Zoreth clenched his fists. "But they're just humans. How could they have such power? Their ships are nothing compared to ours. There must be something we're missing." Another officer, a younger alien with bright red eyes, spoke up. "There are rumors, sir. I've heard whispers among our engineers. Some say the humans have been developing weapons that—" Zoreth cut him off sharply. "Rumors are meaningless. We need facts. We've underestimated Earth, and now we're paying the price. I want every ship fully repaired. We'll regroup, and we'll take Earth when we're ready. We've faced worse, and we'll crush them like any other species that has dared to challenge us." The officers nodded, but doubt lingered in the air. They could not shake the feeling that they were facing something far more dangerous than they had imagined. As the meeting ended, Zoreth's mind raced. He had never encountered an enemy like this, and his instincts told him that humanity was hiding something powerful enough to turn the tide of a battle in an instant. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the human fleet was still reeling from their unexpected success. The crew aboard the lead warship, Victory's Edge, felt a mix of confusion and excitement. They had never expected their response to the alien scan to have such an impact. It was as though the ship itself had a mind of its own, reacting to the aliens' presence with a force that no one had anticipated. Captain Alina Knight stood in front of the warship's control panel, her eyes scanning the data that was flooding in from all sides. The pulse that had been emitted from their ship had disrupted the alien fleet, but no one knew how or why. The ship's AI systems had registered the surge, but there was no explanation for it. "Captain," a young officer said, approaching her, "we've managed to isolate the energy signature from the alien fleet's response. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. The power surge seems to be responding to external stimuli, but it's not just mechanical. It's almost alive." Elena turned to him, her brow furrowed. "Alive? What do you mean by that?" "I'm not sure," the officer replied. "The surge, it didn't come from the ship's weapons or energy systems. It came from something deeper, something within the ship's core. It's as though the ship's eye was somehow linked to the reaction. But it's different. It's almost as if the ship is responding to threats on its own. Like it has a defense mechanism built into it, one that we didn't know about." Elena took a deep breath, her mind racing. Could it be possible? The humans had always been resourceful, but no one had ever suggested that their ships could react in such an instinctive way. It was as if the ship had known exactly what to do when the aliens had attacked. And now, they were facing an enemy that had underestimated them, a fleet that had been thrown into disarray by a force that they had not prepared for. "Keep working on it," Elena ordered. "We need to understand this fully. If there's more to these ships than we realized, we need to figure out how to use it to our advantage." As the officers returned to their stations, Elena stared out at the stars, lost in thought. The aliens were bound to come back, and when they did, they would be better prepared. But humanity had shown them something crucial. They were not as helpless as the galaxy thought. The aliens had underestimated them, and now they would have to face the consequences. Across the galaxy, the alien fleet was preparing for their next move. Commander Zoreth was furious, but he had no choice but to regroup. Earth had become more dangerous than they had anticipated, and he knew that if they didn't act quickly, humanity could become a serious threat to their dominance. "Send word to the other fleets," Zoreth ordered. "We are not done with Earth. We will return with everything we have. But this time, we will not be caught off guard. We will crush them. We will make them regret ever challenging us." As the alien ships moved deeper into their preparations, a sense of unease settled over their ranks. The memory of the energy pulse, the terrifying power that had incapacitated their fleet, lingered in their minds. The once confident aliens now found themselves facing an enemy they didn't fully understand. The galaxy was vast, and there were many unknowns, but one thing was certain. Earth had just made itself a target, and the aliens would stop at nothing to ensure their superiority. Back on Earth, the warships were ready. The unexpected victory had emboldened humanity. They had faced the unknown and come out on top. But the crew knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would return, and humanity would have to be ready. The question now was not whether the aliens would attack, but how humanity would respond. The stage was set for a confrontation like no other. The first shots had been fired by the humans, and now the galaxy would watch as Earth prepared for war. The days that followed the alien encounter were filled with a heightened sense of alert. Earth had been thrown into a whirlwind of activity. From military bases to command centers, everyone knew the implications of what had just happened. Humanity had dealt the first blow, but the real battle was yet to come. The alien fleet had retreated, but the victory was a fleeting one. Earth was still vulnerable, and the aliens were far from defeated. Captain Elena Knight stood at the head of her warship, Victory's Edge, her eyes scanning the horizon of space through the massive viewport. The stars seemed calm, peaceful even. But she knew better. Every day they spent waiting, the aliens were preparing for their return. And when they did, they would come stronger, faster, and with more firepower. The ship's crew had been working tirelessly to prepare for the next wave, but no one knew exactly what to expect. The power surge that had disabled the alien fleet still remained a mystery, and no one could explain why it had happened, or whether they could reproduce it again. "Captain, we've received a new transmission." An officer interrupted her thoughts, his voice laced with urgency. Elena turned towards him, raising an eyebrow. "What is it?" "It's from the United Galactic Council," he replied. "They want to speak with you directly." The United Galactic Council, the governing body of the galaxy. Elena's gut twisted at the mention of it. She had heard stories, of course, of powerful alien empires that ruled over countless worlds. But Earth had always been an afterthought in galactic politics. Now, after the events with the alien fleet, Earth had drawn attention. And that could mean trouble. "Put them through," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. A hologram flickered to life in front of her. It was a representative of the United Galactic Council, a tall, regal-looking alien with sharp features and a golden robe that seemed to shimmer with power. The alien's gaze locked onto Elena as he spoke. "Captain Knight," the representative said, his voice cold and formal. "I am Delegate Sornis of the United Galactic Council. I am here to address the recent events involving the alien fleet of the Psychar." Elena stood straighter, her eyes narrowing. "The Psychar. What is your interest in them?" Sornis's gaze remained fixed on her, his tone unchanging. "The Psychar are an ally of the Council, though we have had our differences in the past. Your unexpected defense of Earth has stirred unrest among the galactic powers. We are offering you a chance to explain yourselves before the matter escalates any further." Elena's mind raced. She knew exactly what this was. The United Galactic Council was not reaching out to offer their support. They were offering an ultimatum. They were warning Earth to stay out of their business, to stop interfering with the galactic status quo. "Earth is not looking for trouble," Elena replied carefully. "We only acted in defense. We didn't start this war." Sornis's lips twitched, though it was hard to tell whether it was a smile or a sneer. "Defense or not, you've made a dangerous enemy. The Psychar will not forget your attack on their fleet. And now, the eyes of the galaxy are upon you." The Council does not take kindly to unexpected acts of aggression. Alina clenched her fists at her sides, her resolve hardening. We didn't attack anyone. They fired first. If they come back, we will defend ourselves. This is our home. Sornus's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. Understand this, Captain. You will be judged by the Council. The Psyker will not let this go unpunished. If you wish to avoid further conflict, you must cease your preparations and allow the Seeker to deal with you as they see fit. Alina felt a surge of anger, but kept her composure. We're not giving up Earth to anyone. We will defend our planet, no matter the cost. Sornus's expression darkened. Then you will face the consequences. The Psykar are already mobilizing. Prepare yourselves, Earth, for the war you've started. With that, the transmission ended, and the hologram flickered out. Alina stood motionless, the weight of the situation pressing down on her shoulders. She had known that the aliens would not take their defeat lightly, but this, the United Galactic Council, was threatening to punish Earth for its defense. It felt like an insurmountable challenge, one that no amount of preparation could fully prepare them for. But Alina wasn't about to back down. She looked out over the vastness of space again, her mind filled with determination. Earth had survived the first encounter, and it would survive the next. They had fought for their survival, and they would not be forced to submit to anyone, not even the Galactic Council. "Get me the fleet," she said, her voice steady. "We have work to do." Meanwhile, back on the Psykar flagship, the mood was much darker. The aliens were humiliated. A fleet of human warships, so small and seemingly insignificant, had managed to cripple them with an energy surge that they could not explain. Their commander, Zoreth, had never been so angry in his life. He was a seasoned veteran, one who had led his fleet through countless victories. But this time, they had been bested by a species they had underestimated. Zoreth paced back and forth in his command chamber, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge. The Psyker were not a species that allowed such defeats to go unpunished. The damage to their fleet had been significant, but they had the resources to rebuild. They would come back stronger, more prepared. And next time, they would not make the same mistake. "Commander, we have received a message from the United Galactic Council," one of his officers reported, breaking Zoreth from his thoughts. "Put it through," Zoreth snapped. A hologram appeared in front of him, showing the same representative, Delegate Sornus, who had spoken to Captain Knight. The representative's tone was as cold as ever. "Commander Zoreth," Sornus began, "I trust you are recovering from your setback." Zoreth's eyes narrowed. "You dare speak to me like that, Delegate?" Sornus's gaze was unwavering. "It is not my place to judge, Commander. But the Council is aware of your defeat at the hands of the humans. The galaxy is watching, and Earth will not be allowed to upset the balance of power. We expect the Seeker to handle this situation swiftly and decisively." Zoreth's fists clenched. "I will make them regret underestimating us. We will return, stronger than ever." Sornus nodded. "Make no mistake, Commander. The Council has given its support to the Psyker. Earth's fate will be decided soon." The hologram faded out, leaving Zoreth standing in the silence of his command chamber. His mind was set. Earth had made a powerful enemy, but the Psyker would show them that there was no place in the galaxy for such defiance. The war was far from over. It was just beginning. The weeks that followed were filled with tense preparations. Earth's military forces, though still relatively small compared to the galactic powers, had been pushing themselves harder than ever before. Captain Alina Knight and her crew aboard Victory's Edge were no exception. The warships, once simple in their design, were now undergoing extensive modifications. They were equipped with upgraded energy systems, faster engines, and newly developed weapons that no one could fully understand, except that they were necessary. The aliens were coming, and humanity needed to be ready. Despite all the preparations, the tension on Earth was palpable. The transmissions from the United Galactic Council had become more frequent, each one more threatening than the last. The Council was demanding that Earth cease its defiance, but Elena knew that giving in was never an option. Earth had already made its stance clear. The Psyker and their allies might be powerful, but humanity had proven that they weren't to be underestimated. Elena stood in the command center of Victory's Edge, reviewing the latest scans of the alien fleet. The Psyker were gathering, building their forces just beyond the edge of the solar system. The humans had no illusions about what would happen next. The aliens were coming to finish what they had started, and Earth was their target. Every move they made had to count, and every decision was critical. "Captain, we've received another transmission," one of the officers said, breaking Elena from her thoughts. She looked over at him, her heart sinking. She knew who it was from. "Put it through," she ordered. A hologram of Delegate Sornus appeared before her once again. His cold, calculating eyes seemed to pierce through her. "Captain Knight," Sornus's voice echoed across the room. "I trust you've had time to consider the consequences of your actions." Elena's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. "I've had plenty of time to consider it, Delegate. The Psyker attacked us. We defended ourselves. That's the end of it." Sornus's gaze hardened. "The Psyker are not the only ones you need to worry about, Captain. The Council has decided to take more direct action. The Psyker will strike soon, and when they do, Earth will be left with nothing." Elena's mind raced. She knew this was coming, but hearing it from the Council felt like a final blow. Earth was alone in this. She couldn't rely on anyone else to help them. The weight of the galaxy's expectations was on her shoulders, and she wasn't sure how much longer they could hold out. "I don't need your threats, Delegate," she replied, her voice steely. "Earth will defend itself, with or without your approval." Sornus paused for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Very well, Captain. You leave us no choice. The Psyker will deal with you, and when they do, there will be no mercy." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Elena to stare at the now empty space before her. She turned slowly to the officers standing nearby. "Get me the fleet. We have to be ready." Zorath stood on the bridge of the Psyker flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewports. His fleet was fully assembled now, ready to strike. The humiliation from their previous encounter with Earth still burned deep within him, but it had also hardened his resolve. The Psyker would not make the same mistakes again. They had learned from their defeat, and now they were prepared for the humans. "Commander, we are ready to proceed," an officer said, walking up to Zorath. "The fleet is in position." Zorath nodded. "Launch the first wave. Earth will fall, and the galaxy will learn that no one defies the Psyker." As the alien ships powered up and moved into position, Zorath's mind was focused entirely on the coming battle. He had spent years building his reputation as a fierce and unyielding commander. A small part of him even admired the humans for their bravery, but that wouldn't stop him from annihilating them. Earth's defiance would not go unpunished. Back on Earth, Elena stared at the tactical maps displayed in front of her. The fleet was ready, but there was no mistaking the overwhelming size of the Psyker forces approaching. The numbers alone made the odds look impossible. But she had seen what humanity was capable of, what their warships could do when pushed to the brink. "Captain," the officer at the tactical station spoke up. "We've identified the Psyker fleet. They're making their approach. They've sent a first wave ahead of the main force. We estimate it's a decoy." "How much time do we have?" Elena asked, her mind already calculating their options. "Maybe an hour, Captain. Their main fleet is close behind." Elena turned to face her crew, determination in her eyes. "We'll hold the line. All ships, prepare for battle. We don't have much time, but we will make it count." The first wave of Psyker ships emerged from the depths of space, their dark silhouettes sharp against the backdrop of distant stars. The alien ships were massive, their hulls bristling with weapons of unimaginable power. They were a sight to behold, yet there was something different this time. The alien fleet moved with a precision that betrayed their previous mistake. They were out for blood. "All hands to battle stations," Alina ordered. "We're not just going to survive this. We're going to win. Keep your heads, stay sharp, and do not let up." The human fleet was outnumbered, but it was never about the numbers. It was about the heart, the will to fight, and the knowledge that they had everything to lose. As the Psyker ships closed in, the first shots were fired. The humans responded immediately, their weapons unleashing a torrent of fire into the oncoming alien ships. The Victory's Edge moved at the forefront, its guns blazing as it tore through the first wave of Psyker ships. There was no fear in their hearts, only the desperate, primal will to protect their home. As the battle raged on, Alina's eyes never left the battlefield. She watched as human ships, their weapons lighting up the dark void of space, clashed with the Psyker. The odds were stacked against them, but Earth wasn't going down without a fight. For every Psyker ship that fell, another took its place. But the humans fought with a ferocity that the aliens had not expected. The first wave was destroyed, and the humans didn't stop there. They were sending a message that would echo through the stars for as long as the galaxy existed. Humanity would not bow down. Zorath, observing from the safety of his command ship, saw his forces faltering. The humans were more resilient than he had expected, and his confidence began to waver. He had underestimated them before, and now it was clear that he would make no such mistake again. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, Zorath felt uncertainty creeping into his heart. The humans were not the weaklings he had believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous, and soon he would learn just how dangerous they truly were. The battle in space raged on, and Alina's hands tightened around the command chair as another wave of Psyker ships approached. The first victory had been hard won, but she knew this was just the beginning. The enemy wasn't going to back down. They would continue to press, to strike harder, and they wouldn't stop until they broke Earth's resolve. But Alina couldn't afford to let fear take root. She had seen her crew fight with a fire in their hearts, and that gave her hope. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Psyker flagship," a voice from the communications station said. Alina turned, her face grim. "Put it through." On the screen, the cold, calculating face of Zorath appeared. His eyes glimmered with malice. But there was something else, something Alina couldn't quite place. It wasn't the overconfidence she had seen before. There was a flicker of uncertainty behind his steely gaze. "Captain Knight," Zorath's voice echoed across the bridge. "You have surprised me. Your victory over the first wave was unexpected. But do not mistake this for a real triumph. You will not survive what is coming." Alina's eyes narrowed. She wasn't going to let him play games. "You're wrong, Zorath. We've survived worse, and we'll survive this. You should have learned it by now." The alien commander leaned forward slightly, a dark smile creeping onto his face. "Perhaps, but the Psyker are not the only ones you must worry about. The Council's fleet is coming." Alina's heart skipped a beat. "The Council?" "Yes," Zorath continued. "They see your defiance as a threat to the stability of the galaxy. They are not as forgiving as I am. When they arrive, your pathetic fleet will be crushed beneath their boots." Alina held her ground. She could feel her crew's eyes on her, waiting for her response. She couldn't let the fear of the unknown take hold. Not now, not when they had come this far. "Tell your precious council that Earth will not kneel," she said, her voice cold. "We fight for our home, and we will not stop." Zorath's expression flickered with something darker, something colder. "Very well, Captain. Prepare yourself for the consequences." The transmission ended, and for a moment, silence filled the command deck. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They knew this was no empty threat. The Council's fleet was a force to be reckoned with, but they also knew that if there was one thing they could count on, it was their captain, and their determination to survive. "Captain," one of the officers said hesitantly, "what are our chances against the Council fleet?" Alina didn't flinch. She had no illusions about their chances, but she wouldn't show fear, not to her crew. "We'll fight. We've done it before, and we'll do it again." Our weapons are strong, and we know how to use them. We're not done yet." She turned to the tactical officer. "Signal the fleet. We hold the line. No retreat." As the orders were sent, Alina stood up from her chair, pacing slowly across the bridge. Her mind was racing, trying to anticipate what was coming. She had been a soldier all her life, but this was different. They weren't just fighting for their survival anymore. They were fighting for everything that Earth had built. For their families, their homes, their very existence. And she knew, deep down, that if they lost this fight, there might be no coming back from it. Suddenly, the entire ship shook as another salvo of enemy fire hit them. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engine sputtered for a moment. Alina gripped the edge of a console to steady herself. The ship was tough, but it wasn't invincible. "Captain," another officer called. "The Psychar are advancing. They've launched their second wave." Alina's heart skipped. If they didn't act quickly, they would be overwhelmed. "Prepare all weapons. Full power to the shields. We need to buy time." She could feel the tension in the air as the crew scrambled to execute the orders. The Victory's Edge was a marvel of human engineering, and every single person on board was determined to make sure it lived up to its name. Outside, the battle continued. A blinding flash lit up the space around them as another ship from the Psychar fleet exploded into a fireball. Alina's heart skipped with a sense of pride, but it was short-lived. There were too many of them. For every Psychar ship that fell, 2 more took its place. As the battle wore on, Alina's mind shifted back to the Council. Zorath had been right about one thing. Their fleet was on its way. The Psychar may have been powerful, but the Council's ships would be even worse. Earth had no allies to rely on. No one was coming to save them. They had to win on their own. Hours passed, and the situation grew bleaker by the minute. The Victory's Edge had taken damage, and their remaining ammunition was running low. The other ships in the fleet were in similar condition, yet they kept fighting, pushing back wave after wave of alien forces. Then, just when it seemed like they might finally break, a new signal appeared on the scanners, an unfamiliar fleet, large and growing by the second. "Captain, you need to see this," one of the officers said, his voice shaky. Alina rushed over to the console. The new fleet was unlike anything she had ever seen. Their ships were sleek, almost organic in their design, and they moved with a fluidity that suggested precision and intelligence. These were not Psychar ships. "No way," Alina muttered under her breath. "Is that?" "Yes, Captain. It's an Earth fleet. The backup we've been waiting for." Alina's eyes widened as the ships appeared in full view. These weren't just ordinary backup ships. They were Earth's secret weapon. Ships that had been in development for years, kept hidden from the Council and the Psychar. And now, they were here, just in time to turn the tide of battle. The new fleet charged into the fray with terrifying speed, their weapons lighting up the dark expanse of space. The Psychar had no time to react. The unexpected force of humanity's secret fleet hit them like a hammer, throwing them off balance. Alina couldn't believe it. "Are those prototypes?" an officer asked, barely able to believe his eyes. Alina smiled, a rare expression on her face. "You could say that. Humanity never shows all its cards." With the tide of battle now swinging in their favor, Alina's heart swelled with hope. They were far from out of danger, but for the first time in hours, she allowed herself to feel something close to relief. "Let's finish this," she said, as the battle raged on, the distant sound of alien ships being torn apart by Earth's fleet echoing in the dark. And so, Earth's finest hour had come. The fight was not yet won, but the aliens would soon understand the true might of humanity, and that they had underestimated the species they thought would crumble under their superior strength. The Psychar would never forget what happened next.